Let me ask, what's important to you?
As far as what?
Period.
Period. Just being a solid person, man.
Being a solid person?
Yeah. Because, it's some... in Hollywood, you be dealing with a lot of fake, a lot of uncomfortable people. So you got to kind of... And I'm from Detroit, so I'm kind of used to the uncomfortable people, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, I just... I find it like it's difficult for you to be around it, and you could find yourself getting lost in it if you don't be careful. So I try to remain solid as possible as I can.
And so what is a solid person? How would you define that?
Trustworthy, honest, good to people, move more as like a person that wants to serve and help and move together versus every man for himself. Let's just go. You know what I'm saying? Because when you be like that, you kind of be stepping on toes, and it's rough.
So in that kind of business, being a comedian, most people are not solid people. Why did you go into that?
Because I just like to make people laugh, man. And I thought, when I was in my 20s, it was something that I really wanted to do. However, I was going through kind of like a depression. I was going through a depression. Kind of a depression.
Either you are or you're not.
Yeah, so I went through a depression in my 20s, and then I moved out here to try to get out of that and try to pursue comedy, wholeheartedly.
Right.
So.
How'd that going?
Man, it's rough. It ain't, I ain't Kevin Hart yet or Cat Williams, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. And so what does depression feel like? What's that like going through?
Going depression?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like I don't even know what to say. It's like you walking around and you got a bucket of water just weighing on your chest all day. It's just like a grievous. It's just like you're just sinking in. All this feel like you just can't. You're moving, but you don't feel like you move. Feel like you're stuck and shit.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I cussed, my bad.
No, that's fine.
All right.
No, that's fine. And so, are you over that now?
Yeah. I got over it in around in my mid-30s.
Oh yeah. And how did you get over it?
Through my mother and going to church. So I got heavy into religion, and then I think that plus my mother coaching me through and helping me see some things that was that was actually the triggers for it.
Oh.
One being my father had committed suicide when I was 17, and me and my mother, we found him in the basement. So that was the main thing that sparked it.
Wow. So you walked into the basement and your father had already taken his own life?
Yeah.
What would it like to see that? How did he do it?
It's crazy because all he had to do was stand up. So he just hung himself from the basement ceiling and just dropped his knees.
Wow.
And didn't stand back up. But that's all he had to do, was stand back up.
And so you walked in and saw that. What was your first impression? What did you think?
Well, here's the thing. I don't even have a good visual of him anymore because my mother was standing in front of me, and the way I can explain it is we were going down these stairs to the basement, before we hit the bottom. And then when she got to the bottom, then I got to the bottom, she was like, look at this, dog doodled all over the basement. And I looked down, and then she looked up, and when she was about to say, what are you? And then when I turned to look at him, all I could do was like this. It was he's sitting in his chair, it's like a bang, because she screamed so loud, it was all right, she pushed me. Oh. So it was like a boom, boom. So it was so fast that I couldn't even grasp what exactly was happening. Because I was talking to her, I was like, it looked like he was standing, what was going on? I was like, I couldn't. She said, you saw it. And I go, nah, I couldn't, because the timing, you did that perfect, I didn't, you know what I mean? So that was one of the things that I felt like was the main trigger for my depression. I think that was, yeah.
And why did he take his life?
Struggling with drugs, struggling with crack. My mother separated from him because she was like, you gotta fight this on your own, because she was carrying him for years, trying to help him get better.
Right.
But it wasn't working. It was kind of like she was almost like his crutch to do what he was doing.
Yeah.
So then when she pulled out and was like, you gotta try, because she had put him through rehab several times, and it wasn't clicking for him. So she was like, you gotta try to figure this out.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And so they were separated, were they still living together or something?
Yeah. Yeah, we all were at one point. I got moved away because I got caught up in the streets. So like I was selling drugs with this gang and pretty much was part of the gang, and went to juvenile, got out, and I just was like, fuck it, I dropped out of school. I was like, I'm going to sell this crack and make $1 million right quick. And then she found out, and she made me move. When she found out I was back on the streets again, she made me move when my aunt asked me to just go back to school, and she told me all I got to do is try, and she'll give me and help me with anything I need. And I did. I tried, and I graduated. Huh?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So were you close to your father?
Nah, not really. We didn't start getting close until when I moved. But when we lived together, she said, what did my mother say? She said, you had you acknowledged him as your father, but you didn't have respect for him as your father. Because they were separated since I was 2 to age 10. Because she caught him cheating. And she never, my mother always believed in not getting divorced and that maybe one day things would get better and that they would get back together. So she just separated from him and just took care of me. And she went to school full-time and worked full-time. And I was bouncing around at my grandmother, aunt's house, staying with people. And then she would come and get me whenever she had a weekend off or whatever, and then bring me and I'll be with her. And she stayed with my great-grandmother. So it was like that. I was kind of all over the place. And
what a mess.
Yeah. yeah. It was just.
Wow. So they separated, but they still lived together.
No.
You said they did not live together.
When they first separated, they didn't.
Oh,
when I was a child.
Right.
When they got back together.
Oh, I see.
They
got back.
They brought me back in about 10, 11 years old. So she brought me back from the east side over to the west side.
Yeah.
And then when I started living with him, I wasn't around him like that. So it was like I barely saw my father. So I was like, man, every time he hand me the remote, I'm like, who is this dude? Well, every time he say, I knew he was my dad, but it was just like, man, you get the remote yourself. It was like that,
Wow.
So it was a constant bickering, and we got into a couple fist scuffles, you know what I'm saying? I didn't win, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Always lost. And he used to say to me, wait till you get 18, that's when I'm really gonna fight you. You gonna see what time it is. And he'd say, you ain't shit right now. That's what he used to tell me. I said,
wow.
all right.
Did you love him?
Yeah, yep. Actually, that's what I realized. When he died, I had all this anger.
Yeah.
And that's what had me into the suicide. And then when I was what got me out of it, I was 32, 33 years old. And I called Mom's on his birthday. And I was crying. And then she's like, she said, you doing this again. And I go, what? She said, do you realize you cry every year? You call me crying for his birthday? And I said, I do. And I didn't even notice it. She said, yeah, you call me exact day every time and you cry. And then she's like, so I want you to know that he's okay now. He's at rest. She said, so this is what I want you to do. When I get off this phone, I want you to sit down and think to yourself. Don't go nowhere. Just sit there and ask yourself questions and ask yourself afterwards why you cry. So I did. I sat there. I'm like, man, because he went this, he went there, and just when it was happening, and he said he was going to be there, and he was supposed to give me my car for graduation, and he committed suicide. I said, man, and going through all those emotions, that's when I realized, I was like, oh, shit. I was crying because I actually loved him.
Yeah.
And that's why I was mad at him. So I wasn't mad at him because I hated him. I loved him. And I said, oh, man, I really love my pops like that. And I said, from that point on, never cried again.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story, man.
Yeah, man, it was good. It was good to get that out.